Where are the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail. It's episode 63. Is that significant? Not the number. Although I'm trying to get this numerologist, gematria guy on the show, so maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe he'll explain it to us. But that is not important. What is important on this May 23rd, 2023? Look at all these numbers that are popping up. We have an amazing guest for you tonight. Roy Price is going to be joining us very shortly on the show. If you don't know who Roy Price is, Roy Price founded Amazon Video. He's the former head of Amazon Studios. He's won 14 Best Series Awards at the Emmys and Golden Globes. He has some amazing insight on the film and TV industry, as well as some cool thoughts on how crypto NFTs will be a part of the movie industry going forward. And if you know me, you know that I'm not an aspiring writer. I mean, I've written and I started a movie called Phil City. You can check it out. It's on Tubi. When I was back in Canada, Ryan Long and myself, we wrote a movie that is in, I don't know what's going on with that. But anyways, I'm very excited about this because as someone who is a lifelong TV and movie fan, it'll be nice to speak with somebody who like really knows what's going on, but more importantly, where things are headed. Because I think a lot of people are pretty frustrated. Definitely people who are watching this are pretty frustrated with the state of a lot of this stuff. So we're going to be joined by Roy very shortly. In the meantime, just a little housekeeping to get out of the way, as always. And thank you very much. I just want to say everybody for taking their Tuesday nights to come hang with myself over on Low Value Mail. We do appreciate you. But so, as always, if you want to support the show, you can do so. Just like, subscribe, leave a rating, review if you're listening to this. And then, as always, we're going to have an after show at 11 p.m. The after show is super chill. We just get copyright claims watching videos. I think we got 2 last week. So we have a good time. And if you want to get access to that, you can sign up over on here on YouTube. If you want to do that, you can just become a Scroat member over on YouTube. You can go sign up on Patreon, Locals, or even Twitter. You can do. We can do it on Twitter. And then, as always, tomorrow. And just a note back to the subscriber thing, but once we hit 500 subscribers, which we're in the 3 ballpark, once we hit 500 subscribers, we'll be having some more content coming, whether that's, I haven't decided yet. Either I'm going to make this show longer, go real coast-to-coast vibes, or we'll have an afternoon show for all the Euro-Australian people who stay up late to listen to this shit. Tomorrow night, we're back with an all-new episode of The Bathhouse, live from the Stand Comedy Club Green Room at 10:30 p.m. And we are going to be joined tomorrow by show favorites JJ Lieberman, Derek Drescher, and my boy Steve Francois. All very funny comedians. Join my mailing list if you want to see me doing stand-up where you live. Like, not in your house or anything, but I mean, no, I don't want to go to your house. I used to do gigs like that when I used to live in Canada where people would straight up be like, hey, can you just come do stand-up like for Christmas? And you'd be like, we're just, like, everybody's like in their socks just drinking like eggnog and you're just doing stand-up for them with no microphone. It was, comedians referred to these things as hell gigs. Hell gigs is what they are referred to as in the comedy industry. So anyways, please do that. And and then the phone lines, we will be opening the phone lines at some point during the show. So without further ado, let me figure this out. We are going to bring Roy on 1 second, please. Everybody, hold on, Roy. Sorry, everybody. As you know, I do this all myself. 1 second. 1 second, Roy. Here we go. Move that there. Do that there. Here we go. Roy, how you doing? Sorry,
Good, Danny.
yeah, I just had to rejigger a few things around in my my streaming software over here. But thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate this. I'm super excited about this, as I was telling you off the air. And we have much to talk about, and I'm pretty pumped. So Roy Price, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing, Roy?
Good. I appreciate it, and I'm very impressed by your mastery of Zoom.
I mean, it's everything. I don't know if you know about this thing called like OBS, but I have this whole broadcasting software as well. So I'm essentially running a TV show by myself right now. It's not a great TV show production wise, but it's not bad. It's not
right. I love it.
Yeah, it's not bad either. So, Roy, I think I don't know how we connect. We connected somewhere on Twitter. We met when you were in New York, maybe sometime last summer, I want to say,
Yeah.
very briefly. I remember you were wearing that sharp Mickey Mantle jersey.
That's
do remember
right.
that. Yeah. Are you a Yankees fan?
Yes, and I went to the Yankees game that day, and then I came by and saw you guys.
Right. Okay, cool. So you have been working in the TV film industry since what year? The early 2000s, is that correct?
Probably the late 90s.
Late 90s. Okay,
Yeah.
late
So
90s.
I was at Disney then.
So you used to work at Disney, and then you moved over to Amazon. You basically founded, if correctly, like Amazon Studios. Is that the?
Yeah. Yeah, so Amazon wanted to get into digital video. They sold DVDs and stuff, and so I went up to do that.
You went to Seattle.
Uh-huh.
You moved to Seattle.
Yeah, I'd never been to Seattle.
Really? And did they find you, or like how did that work?
They had like an ad. I think at the McKinsey website.
Yeah.
And so I uploaded my resume because I had the idea to do basically the same thing, but on my own. And then when I learned that they wanted to do it, I thought, well, they probably have a good shot. They have a slight advantage.
Yeah.
Over me solo.
Yeah, and this was 2000 what? 4?
I went up there in 2004.
2004. So in 2004, you were already because I'm trying to think. In 2004, I was living in Canada. I was still for sure doing getting the Netflix, like where they send you the one DVD and then which Netflix still does that. Is that true?
I think they stopped that now.
Or they stopped that pretty recently. But there was up until fairly recently, there was still a small portion of that business that was still remaining, where they would
correct
straight up send you a DVD. There's still Redbox around, which I always, you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Yeah. It's like a vending machine.
It's like a vending machine for DVDs. Do you have a way to play a DVD?
I do not.
Yeah, neither do I. I always wondered, and it's not even everything's so cheap now, technology wise, where I imagine if you wanted to buy a DVD player, it's probably $10.
Yeah, it's probably easy, and you can also do it in your Xbox, but I don't have an Xbox right now, so I have DVDs, but no player.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not much of a gamer myself. So anyway, so you started Amazon Studios, or Amazon Video and Amazon Studios, a different thing?
Well, Amazon Video is the service that you visit and they play videos, and Amazon Studios is the entity that produces the original content in the service.
Right.
Like, The Boys or whatever. And so I went up there, and the reason I left Disney to begin with was that I felt the internet was going to totally change everything about television, and Disney was not going to ask the TV animation execs to figure that all out. So that's why I left originally. And then wound up at Amazon when they wanted to do that. And I was a huge Amazon fan. So I thought they had a great opportunity. And so, got up there, and I thought maybe they would have, having been at McKinsey, I thought maybe they would have a big deck that was like, this is how we figured this out, and this is our strategy. And so I asked my boss at the time, like, whether that existed. And he just showed me an email from, I think, an email from Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
saying, I think we should probably get into digital video. And that was like the whole,
that's it. He just
that was
goes,
it.
and then they just are like, we're just gonna figure. And was there like a lot of pushback at the time? Like, were there a lot of people who were like, this is stupid, this is not the future, kind of thing?
Oh yeah, one of the early gatherings at Amazon that I went to, I met the guy who was running DVD, and I said, "Oh yeah, I just started and I'm here to do digital video." And he said, "Oh, downloading video? Like, who is ever going to do that?" You know,
I'll never forget. I have a friend who tells a story where, like, when he's my age, late 30s, and when the internet was starting to become like, ubiquitous kind of thing, where everybody was like, but people were getting the internet for the first time, and his mom like really put up a stink about getting the internet because she's like, this is just a fad. Like, this thing is gonna come and go. Why do we have to go like have someone come in our house and all this stuff? So, but you'd think this was his mom. She didn't work in tech, big tech. I mean, I don't know if was Amazon considered big tech at that time.
I think so.
Yeah, probably right.
At least medium tech.
Medium tech for sure. Yeah. So anyway, so you got that all off the ground. And so what are the shows that I'm sure many of the people who are listening, watching know that you were kind of responsible for?
So, after a while, I made the argument that we were going to have to get into original content, and that everybody was going to get into original content to make their service distinctive. And a lot of people did not believe that. That was controversial. But we did start Amazon Studios, get into original content. And in the early days, we just did half hours. So we did like Transparent, Mozart in the Jungle, and then it went on to like Fleabag and Catastrophe, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And we started doing hours like The Boys and Bosch and other shows. And we did a lot of kids animation as well, and movies.
Yeah, and you kind of, I guess, saw that because it was a big part of having to make the content yourself, that it was going to become difficult to license because everybody was going to be trying to license like the same like finite amount of content. Like, is that part of it?
Well, yeah, I think the two parts of it are you want your own distinctive content and your own distinctive brand that, where you own the content, you control it. And secondly, some concern that at some point the studios might pull back on licensing to third-party SVOD services, which indeed has happened. So, the original content strategy was critical. And we also launched original content in overseas. So in India, Japan, Germany. So we spun up those programs and got some successful shows in those areas.
Cool. And there was a cool, you had a tweet that I thought was really cool about the Marvel and the Hulk thing that I thought people.
Oh yeah,
find pretty cool. If you want to tell people that I thought was like a pretty cool.
Well, when I was a kid, my family was in the business. So my father ran Universal TV. So the reason that Marvel exists on TV and film is that I always wore an Incredible Hulk T-shirt, and he asked me what it was, and thought it was cool, and so he called Stan Lee and made the deal for Universal to get a bunch of Marvel rights. And so they did Incredible Hulk, and I think they did another one. I think they did Captain America as like a Sunday night movie or something. And anyway, that's how Marvel got into showbiz. to begin with. They probably would have
Yeah, like at
anyway.
some point, but you kind of
Yeah.
were the catalyst at that point. That's
Yes.
a
I had a small role to
you had a
play.
small role. Did you ever think that if you had wearing any other T-shirts that those like do you have any other T-shirts you think back to where you go, man, if I was just wearing that more, that would have been a huge franchise.
I could have been wearing like a Slinky t-shirt. That would not have been as entertaining.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. I've watched those go downstairs. Those are pretty exciting.
yeah, I think I did ultimately, there was a magazine called Heavy Metal, and that movie did get made, and it was not quite as successful.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I. I'm not sure I know that one. Okay, so I want to talk to you about because I was reading your Substack. I was listening to some stuff on podcast. You have a pretty. You obviously, kind of like to think where the puck is going, using a hockey analogy, I guess. Obviously, with the digital stuff. So we were talking just off air about how there's like, and also you had posted this on your Twitter. People can go follow you on Twitter, but. You posted this chart about how there's like not comedy movies. There's not blockbuster
Yeah.
comedy movies anymore. And I remember you posted that, and I went and looked at it because this is obviously something I'm interested in. Like when I got into comedy, period, like it was, I very much was wanting to, I've written all these scripts and all this stuff, and I was, that's what I want to do. And then started doing like stand up and all that stuff. But like there hasn't been, the last blockbuster comedy that I saw was Ted.
Right.
Like 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And, and I think like, I don't really like, I go to theaters. I saw everything, whatever, all at once, everything everywhere all at once in the
Yeah.
theaters, but I feel like, I don't really talk about like movies are not just like people don't discuss them as much anymore. It's more TV, I think, which I guess, streaming might be, somewhat of a culprit of, but like all my friends are comedians, and it used to be that they would all end up in movies,
Right.
and now they're not. Like they don't write like movies. Nobody's interested in them for movies. I was saying before, like Bert Kreischer has The Machine coming out, which he's hoping will kind of rejuvenate movies for comedy. So I guess my question is, like why? Like what do you think it is?
Yeah, well, it's because people don't like to laugh anymore. They've just lost that interest.
The thing is, they
Uh,
like to in comedy clubs. Like comedy clubs right now are seeing like a real boom in like the in
yeah.
person comedy, and I don't. And there might be something related to the fact that like people legitimately are going to comedy clubs. Like someone came up to me. I was at a bar watching a game by myself, and some guy was like, "Yeah, we were just at the Beacon Theater watching this comedy show." And he's like, this guy Theo Vaughn, who's like not a racy, like, he's not super edgy comedian by any standards. And he's like, these guys, they really say stuff you're not allowed to say.
Huh.
Like there's like that big element where people are like, I have all these thoughts that I have that if I say, I'll get in trouble. So I just need to go watch somebody say them so that I don't feel like crazy or something. I don't know.
Right. Well, most of my TV work has been in comedy, and uh and the problem is in movies where it's gone from 20% of the market to 6, but also in TV. Like people are not really looking for the next South Park, and they're not greenlighting a lot of hilarious shows. And I think it is going to come back. I think we just have to figure out exactly how, but it's like inevitable. You can't stop the tide of culture. So I think it's temporary, and we just have to figure out how to bring it back. And I do not think it's audience driven. I think it's just that the powers that be in Hollywood have kind of decided they don't like comedy. Like some people have said that comedy doesn't travel, but at Amazon, Big Bang Theory was like our number one show in Germany. It was our number one show for years.
Overdubbed?
And so yeah, it was dubbed. So I don't really believe that. Um I just think that, mainly the people in charge are not comedy people. They're
Re-
just not that into it.
Yeah, but and haven't
Their
comedies
background tends to be in drama.
their background tends to be in drama, like because I try to understand like what kind of like cultural component is because don't comedies generally like cost way less to make than like comparable.
They cost somewhat less. I mean, like a primetime half hour, is going to be, it could be around 3 million for a half hour, and a hour, could be six, but if you spend a lot, it could be 15. So
Right.
comedies are cheap, way cheaper than Game of Thrones, but there are hours that are about the same.
It can be like the
I
same as a
don't think
drama.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because that always seemed like the thing with like Rob Schneider, because like Rob Schneider is like still, I don't know the degree to which he's making movies right now, but he has a very like impressive career, and his whole thing, as far as I understand, was his movies just cost like $5 million, and they made
Right.
always more than that, and they were just kind of like didn't have a ton of setups in them. Just and they were just all driven by him, and they just always seem to do well. But yeah, like none of my friends are. I have some friends who are like literally some of the biggest comedians in the world.
Well, I do think that it's probably time for kind of a new generation of comedy people. Just if you objectively look at who you would cast and how old everyone is, a lot of the people on YouTube and TikTok are there, and they're popular, and they're ready to do stuff. You actually have to like pull them away from their YouTube stuff. Like they don't
Yeah.
want to stop. They don't want to discontinue that or take a break. But you have to say, look, it's only 8 weeks, and you get this, and blah blah blah. And so that group of people, I think, is the core of the revolution. And the question is just, what is the platform?
Yeah, and
You know,
what do you think that is?
Is it an existing platform that is going to pivot, which I think is unlikely, or, do we create something new?
Yeah, because I mean I agree with that. Like for someone I do a podcast with Ryan Long, and like all my friends do podcasts on that are just free on. I mean this right here, like all this stuff.
Right.
We do this stuff partially because, and I don't know if it was like a cultural thing with like comedy was not like I guess just people were scared of comedy because everything was so sensitive culturally, like especially during like the Trump era and stuff, where it just was smarter business decision to go safer with everything. Like you can't get in trouble with that. But yeah, so now everybody has a podcast. They have these Patreons. Everybody's expecting a new episode every week. So for someone like say Shane Gillis to just take off for his podcast for 2 months,
Right.
right? People, and I guess you can batch record them or record them remotely, but for him, like he has someone else who he does it with. But yeah, I am very curious about that because I felt like we're in like a comedy dark ages for like in terms of movies specifically.
Definitely. It's like it's the worst. It's the worst ever.
Yeah.
But which I like to think is also an opportunity, because if you come out with the brand that really is the good, fun, edgy comedy, then you're going to be the only one.
Yeah.
It's not like there are 8 other people doing this who know what they're doing.
Of course. Is there an element with that where like a studio doesn't want to like if you work at a studio, you don't even want to say green, like just say my example, like me and Ryan, like they would never want to give us a movie because they're like, if we're wrong about this and we let you do your thing, like we're all done. We're all done for if we miss the mark on that. Like, is that just like a risk issue?
I mean, that's true of every movie though.
Yeah.
I mean, if any movie bombs, then you take career risk on anything.
Right.
So but generally your first best comedy is going to be better than like your 5th best drama, right? So why aren't we making the first best comedy?
Yeah, so you do think that what was the figure you said? It was 6%?
Yeah, and that's including a lot of family movies as comedies.
So there's no comedy movies anymore, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I honestly can't I can't like yeah, I can't. I can barely think of any.
Yeah, I mean, like, what was the great one last year?
I don't know. I well,
I don't know.
I know You People was out. I don't think it did that well, but I guess that's another problem, right? Is that because a lot of comedies, like comedy, doesn't need to be in a theater. Like you'd maybe think like Everything Everywhere All at Once, even though that doesn't need to be, but it's a better experience. Or like definitely any sort of like these, World War One movies, like those do. So then they go on to Netflix, at which point they don't release how they do.
Right, right.
But I guess you don't even know. Like, is there a way that could have been the biggest? I mean, I know it wasn't, but like, can it be these huge movies and we don't even know, or is this strictly just like a box office thing?
Well, you do get some report on how they're doing.
Yeah.
And some people have said, actually the box office number exaggerates the difference a little more because there are some comedy movies being made, straight for streaming. Okay, but it still isn't like, oh, it's the same. It's just that the comedy movies are going to streaming.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just look at the top comedians. Are they doing movies? I mean, like, is Chappelle doing a movie? Is Tim Dillon doing a movie? Like,
Schultz is
nobody,
yeah,
nobody is doing a movie.
Schultz we just had on our podcast, the Boys Cast, a few weeks ago, and he's been starting to get into like having parts in movies. But I mean, yeah, someone like Tim Dillon, he's making $10 million a year or something on his Patreon, and probably
Right.
just like, why?
Like, why bother?
Why bother? Yeah, it's so weird. I guess movies just don't have like the king making power that they once had.
But actually, if he did a great movie, I think it would be very good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, there's no way that people don't like comedies anymore.
Yeah, and there's something about a great movie that a great comedy movie that people remember and they quote that enhances your career in a way that little else does, or even a show,
Mm-hmm.
even a TV show. If you had a Curb Your Enthusiasm or whatever, that can do a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with the quotability thing. Like, it's for me and my friends were, something like Borat or like the Anchorman. Like, probably there's a comic, I'm not going to name him, but he does a Borat impersonation on stage right now, which is like an absolute cardinal sin in comedy. But you're like, that's just like the legs something like Borat has, where you're like, it's still around, even though
so funny.
Yeah, which is like just it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I always wondered like what needs to get people to go back to are theaters down in general, like since COVID? Like have they not like really come back?
Oh, they went way down. Now they're really coming back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know they were
back.
Theaters are back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just basically everything but comedy.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And that they're just not being greenlit.
Yeah.
It's like if you had the next South Park and you brought it to networks around town, I don't think you could sell it.
And it's,
even with a very funny Jesus versus Santa pilot.
Yeah. And not because they don't think it would be losing the money. Like they're like, are they like at the end of the day, are they like, this is a business and it's all just about like profitability, or is there more? Like, I always wondered this just like personally, like how much are they just like, this is a business, I don't think this is a good business decision, or are they just like, we're not putting that out?
People have stuff that they're into. There is a fair amount of variety on different services, but there are, I think people have leanings that can be different from the audience, and Hollywood kind of has a monoculture, and right now comedy is disfavored and in that monoculture, and everyone just kind of seems to agree and be in the same mode.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing that's by far the riskiest in terms of getting you, in trouble with kind of like the internet mobs.
I mean,
and
I
stuff.
guess, although with a movie, I mean, it's not like you don't get to see the movie before you release it. So,
Right.
you know, we can always watch it and we know roughly how controversial it's going to be. You're not going to be surprised. So I don't think some, you know, like if you're doing live stand-up or something, I guess you could be surprised, you know, someone could say something nuts. But, you know, I don't think that's a
Yeah,
huge issue.
so it's just the appetite for just the people who are in charge. They're just it's
It's
almost
just
just like a
not the vibe.
cyclical. Yeah, it's just like a
Like,
cyclical
why do we
thing.
have so much true crime? Like, America does not produce enough interesting crimes to do the number of true crime shows that apparently we need to do. Like, we don't
Yeah.
have a sufficient supply of crime. And, you know,
It's a
there's
good
just
quote.
like,
I
there's
think a
this,
lot of
there's
people would
this,
argue with you on that.
yeah, there's like a huge demand for like true crime. Why is that? I don't know. It's just like, you know, what people are into, I guess. So sometimes preferences do make a difference. I'm not saying there isn't a demand for true crime, but I think there would also be a demand for comedy. And
Yeah,
but
it's just
sometimes things are just out of
taste.
favor. Yeah.
It's just taste. Yeah, like I honestly find myself now. I have HBO Max. Although interesting, you come on the day that HBO Max becomes Max.
Yeah.
Which why is that? I'm sure you're. Why do they keep
There was
changing
huge demand for the Max name.
it? Like, why do they keep doing that?
Huge,
I've been
huge.
seeing commercials for it, and I'm like, you're spending so much money to just like with all these huge A-list actors to say it's called Max now, and I'm just like,
Right.
why?
Well, you know, I think what it is that HBO is a very strong brand that was perceived as being a little prestige or elite, and that put a ceiling on it as to how many subscribers you could get. And so by going to Max, they just kind of start fresh. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. And so maybe it won't have any negatives. You know, like
Gotcha.
HBO is kind of like fancy TV. So people love it, but it's like, you know, 30, 40 million households love it. And the rest, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like maybe too fancy.
Maybe too fancy.
So I suspect that was the rationale.
Interesting. And speaking of which, because I was reading your most recent Substack, which people can find. But so this is relating to the comedy thing, but also you're saying you canceled Netflix because essentially, which today is also the day that Netflix. There's a lot happening in the TV world today. Netflix announced today that they're going to start charging all the freeloaders
Right.
in America. And yeah, like I find myself like I have Netflix, I have HBO Max, I have YouTube TV, I have all these things, and then the main thing I watch right now is just reruns of Cops on
Huh.
on stuff. But so it's like, is there? It's honestly almost exhausting that there's so many different, and like someone will be like, "Oh, you've seen this show," and I'm just like, I can't sign up for another streaming thing.
Right.
Like,
Neither can I.
yeah, like, are they ever gonna figure? Because I know they're obviously all different companies. Like,
I mean, I would actually, if there was something great, you know, if there was like, if we put together all these great comedy shows and movies, and basically did everything that Hollywood is not doing.
yeah,
The other thing is Hollywood is, at least last year, did a lot of boring, nostalgic, political, overly serious, dramatic indie movies that bored everyone and bombed.
yeah,
And I just think that's like people being a little out of touch and like not really up to the moment, you know, like Everything Everywhere was fun and had energy, you know, but I could name six movies that were like really nostalgic and political, and that's not, I really don't think that's the mood people are in.
yeah.
I think people would much rather see like an updated like Cannonball Run,
Sure.
or something like that, like something a little rambunctious and fun.
And fun, yeah. Is the
I think,
problem the development time? Like, is it because I imagine that some of those movies you're referencing, maybe started getting written when, the political tensions were like at their highest. So they're like, this is what the country needs. And you're like, yeah, but this doesn't come out for 5 years or something.
Right. I don't know. I mean, that's it. That's the key to being a good, picker of movies is you have to be able to look into the future and have a sense of what is not going to be passé 2 years from now.
Right.
So, and there were a lot of misses last year. So
Yeah. What do you think about all the stuff that's going on with like the awards? Because I saw you were in your Substack, I believe you're saying how like awards used to, if you won an award, that was, pretty big
yeah,
for a movie.
I think it used to matter more, and you used to be able to like plan your strategy a little more around awards. But now viewership of award shows has really substantially declined, like by 70%. And so the upside is just much lower. Like the free advertising of winning an Oscar, winning an Emmy is just a lot lower. And so unfortunately, even though I really love that kind of movie, kind of special film, if you will, it's you probably if you were running a streamer or something, you wouldn't bet as much money on that category now.
Yeah, because I do wonder, like, the whole thing, the stuff that they've done with the awards, where they're like, yeah, we have all these new rules, like in terms of all like the diversity stuff, which is basically what was like me and Ryan came from Canada, which was they were doing that stuff in Canada, like when we were still there or whatever. But it seems like the moment that they say like, hey, you need to check all these boxes, then you're like, well, then either all the awards you gave in the past were wrong because you were either ignoring these people, right? Or then all the ones going forward are wrong because you're now ignoring these people. And it's just like, not that they were these insanely legitimate institutions, but like they were pretty big. Like, the Oscars, when I was younger, I used to watch the Oscars all the time. And now people just are like, yeah, I don't know, it's the Oscars.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and they have all sorts of new rules that I'm not an expert in, but presumably that excludes some titles. And so the whole category, unfortunately, of Indian prestige, upscale movies is really going through a very difficult time. They also lost a lot of key like indie type theaters. So that's not good for that category. So, one of the toughest areas is if you're trying to get like an indie film made, like if you're trying to do Tar or Manchester by the Sea or something like that. Tough.
Yeah.
Tough
like,
road this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Or it would have to be made for a lot less because like Tar was made for like, I don't know, 30. And, so like movies in that category might have to come down way down to like, 9, something like that.
Can that be done?
I mean, you lose a lot.
It's so funny. We made this movie in Canada. Like it was like the most like by our bootstraps movie, and I think it cost $800,000. And we had explosions and all this stuff, but these were not big Hollywood movies. So let's pivot. I have some questions about technology because I know you're really big into that, and then we're gonna open up the phone lines in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. So, you're obviously like you're really into crypto, NFTs. I've seen a lot of comments on AI and stuff. You said AI can be a helpful tool for writers.
I think so. Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah, because I think there's like a lot of, obviously with the strike right now, right? So I think a lot of, this is like a lot more in focus in, I guess, whatever, the public and just people kind of knowing about this stuff. But so in terms of, first off, in terms of the strike, because they talk about, they're like, yeah, one of the things the writers are on strike about is the use of AI. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, if I just can't understand this, like what scenario can they really use AI like to actually replace a writer?
Well, I think they're worried about a couple of scenarios. One is, I guess, theoretically, where the AI just writes the script or does a rewrite or something like that. having experimented with it extensively, I can say we're nowhere near that. It would have to get so much better.
I mean, isn't that like
Um,
replacing humans level? Like to be able to just write a compelling like screenplay?
yeah, I mean, like, forget it. And
Yeah,
like, particularly in comedy, like in comedy in particular, you're fully protected
yeah,
because GPT is so not funny, and also there are like a million things it cannot joke about.
right. I
And
I actually did when it came out. I took it for trying to give it all these prompts or whatever. And I will say that if you prompt it correctly, it can give you like a stand-up routine of someone who's like probably their first week in comedy. Like to be
okay.
honest, like where you go, like I've been to like an open mic and I've seen some kind of joke
Uh-huh.
here, but you're like that's not competing with anybody who's doing this for a living in any way.
It's not professional. Yeah.
No, no, not at
No,
all.
no.
No, but in terms of how it could help, and I guess maybe we'll come back to the writer's strike thing because you probably have some insight into that. Because honestly, I don't think anybody even understands what's going on with that. But actually, no, now that we're talking about it, what exactly? Because I'm sure you have some fairly good insight. Like, what is the main issue? Is it just like the streaming residuals and stuff like that?
There are a number of issues. AI is one. Residuals are another.
Like, do you think this
Another
drags
is
on?
I think it's credible that it would drag on, but you'd have to be psychic to know. There's really no way to know. But there are certainly some strong arguments that it could go on for a little while.
Yeah, because I mean, just anecdotally, but in the New York like stand-up scene, like I see all these people who I've not seen or you very rarely seen because they're like writers on Seth
Right,
Meyers or something, and they're like, yeah,
right.
I have a job and I don't really need to do stand-up, and now they're like, yeah, I guess I'm back to doing stand-up again.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are a lot of novels and plays being written
Oh
and
yeah,
and stuff like that.
and like, will
I was
that? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was kind of wondering today, I actually don't know the answer to this. If you are a writer in the WGA and you write a movie, can you then, like, at this point during the strike, can you direct and produce it yourself, like for yourself on your own account with your own money? Um, or is that verboten? I'm actually not sure
I
about
like
that.
if and you own the script, like you
Yeah,
own.
like I own the script, I own the movie, I'm the producer, and I'm a writer in the WGA, but I am employing myself. Technically, I'm employed as a writer, but by myself. Like I'm making the
Yeah,
movie, so
yeah,
and
I
I'm
would
getting
imagine.
an amazing deal.
Right. I imagine they would have some beef with that. Like we were in the Canadian unions and they were legitimately like so heavy-handed in like the acting
Uh,
union where we'd go to like film sketches and like this is like we would be, you go for the odd audition for some show or whatever. And like there'd be, like The Boys or something, like good shows, like great shows because they were
mhm.
all filmed in Canada. And then you'd say like I'm going to go shoot like a short film with my friends like on a weekend or something just like to go on YouTube and you'd hear about it being like they say you can't do that. And I'm just like this is
Uh-huh.
not a commercial thing. You're like I'm just doing a thing for my friends because there's not enough
Right.
work and we're just like trying to make stuff because we like making stuff.
Right.
And they were literally like, yeah, you can't do that and if we catch you doing this too many times we'll kick you out of the union.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like and they would send like people to like literal spies like would show up and it was it's exactly how you
Huh.
expect Canada to be.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty wild. But okay, so yeah, back to the AI thing and then we're going to open the phone lines up. But so AI helpful for writers in what sense? Just like grammar like or
I think it's helpful because you've got an assignment to write a script. You sit down at the computer, you tell the AI to write the script, then you email it to the studio, and you collect the paycheck.
and they probably
um,
the studio they just copy it, they plug it into their chat
their
GPT,
AI,
right? And then
and
it
the
goes, this
AI
is the
says, "Hey,
greatest.
this is great. This is
This
amazing."
is the greatest possible script a
Yeah,
human could write
right.
theoretically. So they go, yeah, just write the check.
No,
I,
I think I think as a practical matter, it'll be more like a plugin on Final Draft or Scrivener where it'll help you with stuff. Like, if you're working on an outline, it can say things like, your inciting incident feels a little late, or, you need some beat at the end of the second act, or, like give you a little coaching and a little structural
Yeah.
ideas. I could totally see that, and giving you a bunch of facts. Like what is the range of a Learjet? You
Right.
know,
Just like the
just
stuff
like
where you would
Google.
like that you would hire a consultant for, like
Yeah,
how like
right,
Law and Order has like an actual detective just to make sure it's
right.
like realistic or whatever. Isn't every AI model like isn't it theoretically trained on every movie that's ever been made?
I don't believe so, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. But you could just somehow
You could,
get a database of every script that's ever been written, or say like
yes.
the top whatever 10,000 movies of all time, and you can say here's your training, do
I
this
think what
more.
you would
But
have to do is develop some way of helping the system understand when a scene or a script is good, as
yeah.
opposed to just reading 1,000 scripts and not having any idea which is good, which is bad. I think it would be helpful to have them be annotated. But anyway, yeah, you could do that in theory.
Okay. All right. So I want to actually get to, and we'll open the phone line shortly. But so you're a big crypto guy, big NFT guy. That's actually how we had a little back and forth because you had an NFT project.
Oh,
But
yeah, okay.
so this is kind of, and I'm very interested by this because I have some NFTs, some basketball ones, some Top Shots.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, they're not doing great, but it's fine. I bought them. I bought them for 20 years from now, and I figured if people care about these, then they'll be a good thing to have. But so you have I guess like your prognostication is that a lot of the film world is going to be there's going to be some sort of Web3 NFT tie-in. I guess maybe that's
Well, I think there's an opportunity in uh like right now the entire Hollywood business for the most part is centralized, and it's a vertical stack. And so you just go to one person in an office and you say, "Can I make my movie?" And there are like six people like that around town, and that's the business. And I think the opportunity in the future is to disaggregate that and decentralize it so that it would be more like Kickstarter, except with real equity in the movie, ownership in the movie. So you would like create a detail page on the web and say what the movie is going to be. It's going to be me and Ryan Long, and it's called this, and we have a script. There's the director, there's the budget, and people buy in. And so instead of looking for a green light from one of six people in town, you're just looking for 10,000 people around the world to greenlight your movie. And it's not a vote, because it doesn't matter how many people don't want to greenlight your movie. They don't get a vote. The only people who get a vote are the people who put money into the movie. So I think that a disaggregated, group of global investors and fans would tend to be less subject to like weird cultural anti-comedy moods than like six people.
right. And when you say vote, like that's like a vote in terms of like actual like artistic questions,
It's
or
not a
just
vote. It's just like having an IPO or something. You're raising money.
like just you gotcha, just like they're voting with their wallets essentially. They're just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, there's no voting. It's not a democracy. But if you can find some group of fans that are passionate, or some investors, whether they're fans or not, but they believe that this is a good commercial prospect, and you have no idea who they are, they may be LARPing as frogs on the internet and they live in Dubai, or they live next door, who knows? But who cares? But
And
I think that kind of disaggregated system would actually have a lot of benefits for creators. I think it would give them a lot more control and a lot more ownership. And for people I talk to, those are two things that people really want
yeah, and
right now.
that gives an actual like share in the profits of a
Yeah, so by ownership, I mean you'd have a lot more upside. So, if you made, Star Wars, you become a billionaire instead of, doing it for Netflix, in which case you would not. So,
right.
one of the richest people in Hollywood is Haim Saban, who did, kind of like one show, but the show was Power Rangers and he owned it. And the reason, he's a billionaire and someone who did 40 shows for Nickelodeon is definitely not, is the ownership. And I think with an open marketplace, you'd get a much better deal.
Crazy. I didn't even know that. There's just one guy. How did he start? He just started. What do you like? Just produced a teaser of Power Rangers and then just sold it.
Well, it was actually a Japanese show, and he bought the rights to it and cut out all the parts where they weren't in the outfits,
Yeah.
and created new sort of interstitial parts and sold the new show.
Oh, gotcha.
And brilliant,
And then
great
you
idea.
can and then you can overdub it in any language, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
because their faces are covered.
yeah, yeah. In I don't know if you've ever seen Just for Laughs Gags, one of Canada's greatest exports, artistic exports ever. But it's a prank show, like Just for Laughs, the comedy festival. I think it's what keeps the whole business afloat is they just have this prank show, but nobody ever speaks in it. So it's like syndicated in almost every country in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because nobody ever speaks in it. All right, I'm gonna open. I mean, they're great pranks. Don't get me wrong. They film them all in like Quebec, and some of them are deranged. Like some of them legitimately is some woman is like holding like a baby stroller or something, and then she'll be like, "Hey," to some guy, "Can you like hold this?" And then he'll be like, "Sure," and then she like lets it go into traffic, and then like so the guy thinks just like a baby died. And like it's so crazy, and it's one of the most popular shows in Canada. So anyways, the phone lines are open if anybody wants to call in, ask Roy a question. I have some questions from you know what, here we go, we got a question right away. Please give me one moment, Roy, while I connect them. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, 1 second,
Good.
please. Hey, 1 sec. Just let me connect. All right, you are on with Roy Price. Who am I speaking with?
I'm just calling from Texas. I had 2 questions. The second one is for Royce, but the first one is, Danny, you mentioned something that is shared in common amongst more than 1 billion people around the world, and that is the digital media overload.
Yeah.
There's just way too much to watch. Now, what I'll suggest is not a solution for the whole problem. It's just what's worked for me. And I like miniseries.
Okay.
Something where it's like, yeah. So
I mean, that
like,
the Showtime miniseries was the best show I've watched in a long time on HBO. It's honestly the reason I still have HBO is the Lakers Showtime.
Yes. So I that's what I enjoy, because it's like you give me 6-10 episodes and like it's all really good. And then I also do like the format of how they did True Detective, where it is a mini series and then next season is of the same thing but completely different, sort of, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Anyways,
you got a question for Roy?
That's my suggestion. Yeah, so my question for Roy was, speaking of, because it's been a few years since I used Amazon Prime to watch films and movies and shows and stuff like that, but the one I did watch was Man in the High Castle. Is Roy familiar with working on any of it? Or
I remember it, but I wasn't. I had like 50 shows every year and many movies, so I don't.
So it's nothing specific about the movie itself, but it is a question that has been asked time and time again about people who love consuming media. And I read the book and I watched the show. And I don't remember if I ever watched like the third season, if there was one, but there is a constant thing being asked, why don't film adaptations of written novels like not be accurate to what was written? There's always changes and
Did you think it was not accurate?
It was like it was accurate in the sense of like it matched, but just in terms of the actual plot itself, maybe it like especially just reading. When I read the book, I seemed like, oh, maybe it would have not been long enough for an entire show with multiple.
Oh
seasons.
yeah, for sure.
Maybe,
I mean, with that book.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with that book, it's the narrative itself in the book is not that substantial. It's basically like setting up, the premise, and there are some things that happen, but you really have to take off from there. And our narrative was mostly subsequent to the events depicted in the book. So it had to diverge somewhat. But I think we did try to stay true to it in essence, and which we tried to do generally. Like with Bosch, is based on a series of novels about an LAPD detective by Michael Connolly, and Michael was.
I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with the show, and I liked it.
Yeah, so Michael was an EP on the show, and he was involved with every single episode. And, that's how I would prefer to do it, because unless a book is incredibly obscure, assuming a book or a book series has a lot of fans, they're kind of the core audience. They have a certain expectation, so you don't want to totally blow that. And so we try to work closely with, the author or somebody who represents the author.
And I mean, I guess you probably don't know. Sorry, caller, but like, I guess you don't know when you're making a series. Like, Man in the High Castle went 4 seasons, right? But you don't know that, so you can't be like, oh, we're gonna, like, you have to obviously at some point be like, okay, we're gonna have to go in some direction here, because like the original, like, if you do it from a book or whatever, you're like, well, we did that in season 1, and now we have to kind of continue on, essentially. But
yeah, we went way beyond the narrative of the book.
Right. All right, thanks, caller. You have anything? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say, what is it? It's just with like, I think with my certain generation, the first time we noticed it was when they started putting out the Harry Potter films out in the theater, and that was when people were like immediately snapping to it. But just to tie in the first 2 questions, and then I'll hang up after I ask. Is there what is it? Do you think if people wanted like more accurate like adaptations or something like really well condensed, wouldn't streaming services kind of lean towards the mini series format, just so people aren't overloaded? Because it does seem like having to make multiple seasons seems like it's just it's not really self-fulfilling, and it's just going to run itself empty.
All right. Thanks, caller.
I mean, yeah, maybe so. Because, I mean, yeah, if you do enough seasons, you'll run through the narrative of any book.
Right, yeah. Is there an actual, like, conscious, because I've heard, like, they make content that's essentially, like, second screen content, like, where essentially, like, it's meant to just watch while you're also on your phone, like doing something else.
Oh,
like, what do you think? What do you think about that? I mean, I imagine writers must just hate that idea, but it must be just like that's how it is.
That's something people used to talk about. I feel like around 2009 or something, 2010, people would talk about like transmedia and second screen, and thankfully, I haven't heard either of those terms for like a decade.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought all of that was like a horrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a terrible idea, but like I know a lot of people who would never watch like a subtitled movie or anything with subtitles, because they're just like, I get lost because I wind up on my phone for 10 minutes of it and I don't speak that language, and then they're, you know what I mean, and then they like come back to it. And they're just, I mean, I guess it's one of those things where just like that is just how it is. People's attention is so difficult to, I guess, like harness in with, phones and stuff.
Yeah, that is true. Although people watch more subtitled content, I think, than ever.
Really?
Yeah. Like all this Korean stuff on Netflix, and there's more popular foreign content in the United States than ever, really.
Than ever. Interesting. Okay, we got another caller here. One moment, please. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Hey, what's up? You're on with Roy. Who are we speaking with?
Pete.
Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Going good. Hey, just wanted to really quick kind of give some thoughts on like the whole not having a lot of comedies out right now. But also, I heard Roy, did you do Recess and like the Hercules show for Disney?
Yes. And Kim Possible.
Yeah. So those are some of my favorites as a kid. So
that's great.
Like those shows a lot.
Yeah, I love those shows too.
But yeah, they're super fun. But yeah, for the lack of comedy, I just feel like, like the people who made those types of films, like the filmmakers, like the Judd Apatows and like Seth Rogen people, like I feel like because they're very progressive people, they're just not. They're like trying to like distance themselves from like doing that type of work now. Like if you look back like 10, 20 years ago, like Superbad, We're the Millers, Hangover, like those were really good comedies. But the people that made those comedies, they just don't want to like touch it anymore because like, like people like Jimmy Kimmel, like even like they all used to be funny people, but now they're like ashamed of it or something because of like.
Well, they've become like activists a little bit. Yeah. It's like that activism and comedy stuff is just such a bad mix.
Right. Like it kills it. Like, I mean, like people love those movies and they love the jokes in those movies. Like, I don't know how many times I've like heard people repeat the lines from those movies or just like sitting in the theaters watching them and everyone's cracking up because everyone finds that stuff funny. But like nowadays it's like, you almost can't like admit to liking that type of comedy because it's like everything's just very progressive now.
Well,
like,
see,
I don't know if Roy would. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't even understand why it's really a political thing or it's not political, but has kind of a political tinge to it. I think people can appreciate those comedies and see them in the theater and so I think they will come back. I think there's a resistance right now, but we just have to figure our way around it. And then I think it will become clear that there is a substantial market demand, and then I think it'll get back to normal.
And will it just take one? Like, is that all it really needs is just one?
I mean, maybe one, they could say that's a crazy fluke. So we might have to do it 2 or 3 times.
All right. So 2 or 3 and then we're back, baby.
If somebody were to make like if somebody could just make like the next American Pie, like obviously not another one, but like the next thing that's like that, like I feel like that would really help things like sort of like get back into like, okay, comedy's a good thing and we can have those movies again. I think people are just afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, as far as like Danny, what you were saying, like not like being able to create comedy or whatever, I feel like the best way to do it now maybe is like if you and Ryan do like your own thing and just kind of produce your own show. I don't know where you could put it out, but like I've seen YouTubers just sort of put out like free content and then they like that just gets like way more publicity than even whatever's the newest show on Netflix these days.
Yeah, I mean the problem with producing your own show, if you wanted, like, I mean, if people know who are Boyscast subscribers, but on the Patreon, but we actually did put out a full 45-minute TV show recently. That's kind of like a Kenny versus Spenny thing, but like to make that That was actually fairly cheap. But if you want to make something like a movie, like it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time. Like to write a movie takes a long, like a good movie takes a long time. Like it's so
right.
Then, you know, and the problem is sometimes you're like we've had even offers to make stuff where it's unclear where it'll even end up. And we go like, I don't even know if we want to spend 3 months on a thing and then nobody sees it, even if we get paid for it. You're like, that's barely doesn't even seem worth it. You know, so.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that's got to be like a hard thing to just navigate. But
yeah,
I mean, like, I don't know. I just feel like if you guys just keep trying things or whatever, like something will stick eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hope too. All right. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. We have had people come to us and legitimately say like, hey, we want to make this thing. But then when you find out where it's going to go, it's like on some streaming service you've never like, you know, like an app or something. Like all those, we had a thing, the movie that we actually made in Canada ended up on Canal Plus. You know what that was?
Yeah, it's in France.
It was. I don't think it exists anymore, but it's like they're all like formerly existing these apps, these little like they all wanted to do this like bite-sized thing, and it's interesting because it was before TikTok. Actually, all these things happened, so they somewhat were like foresaw this kind of super short attention span stuff, but I guess it's just so hard to.
I think it would be interesting to say like, okay, we've got, 3 weeks, we have $3 million, we have like you and Ryan and Trevor Wallace,
yep,
and somebody, and it's all in Manhattan. Go.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a little bit like After Hours, and let's figure it out.
Sure.
And, and then you either go to Sundance, so it has to be a little artsy. And, you do it as a movie. It's not a TV show. And, I think the prospects of that would be pretty interesting, with a good filmmaker, if you wind up with a good script. It could be part of a program that can start to recover comedy. I mean, obviously, eventually you want to be making your comedies at 15 or 20, but it would be interesting to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the whole necessarily behind the scenes like cost, but that seems like more than enough to make a comedy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we're running around and it's, people in rooms and the occasional scene, going down the street or in a taxi, but, it's all domestic scenes. There are no Godzilla, there are no spaceships, but nevertheless, we find ways to make it funny and relevant.
Yeah. We did make like for our Patreon for the Boys Cast, like we're basically, we put out a show every subscriber tier. It's similar to like, if you know that show, Kenny versus Spenny. Remember that show, which was two guys from Toronto as well. But I mean, we made the whole show for the main expense was we were putting these stupid like drawer things together that we bought these like pieces. It's called Bugman versus Bugman. We bought these like really shitty, the lowest rated thing on Home Depot, like drawers. Then we had to like as a competition, and like that was the main expense for the whole thing. It was like these like $300 drawers or whatever. So it can be made for TV, but yeah, movies different. Like movies, just like equipment and whatever, all that stuff. All that stuff. It is.
I mean, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be, and I love a show like Nathan For You. I mean, very funny, nothing expensive about it.
Did you catch The Rehearsal? Did you see his new show?
Yeah, I mean, that's like fun too, but in kind of a high-minded way.
That was very.
It's like for all your like Sartre PhD candidate.
Very high concept. All right, we got another call here. Oh, here we go. Hello, 1 second, please. Hello.
Okay. Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? All right, you are on with Roy. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, so I just have one sort of specific question about the Boys show on Amazon. season 1 was a pretty awesome concept, just like regular dudes taking on corrupt superheroes, right? So my question is like, why did you guys or whoever wrote it over at Amazon decide that season 2 was just going to be about Donald Trump?
Well, I left before season 2.
There you go.
So I can't speak to that.
Okay, I just was wondering if you had any insight as to why everybody was like, let's take this show that everybody likes and this great
is that I haven't seen the second
and let's
season.
just make season 2 about Trump.
Well, probably because that's what's going on in the world, and it just seemed probably, they probably thought that was maybe the move at the time. I guess, I don't know. All right, thanks, caller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's TV obviously moves much quicker in terms of like culture. I feel like in that in that extent. All right, we have a question from one of our patrons on the show. He says, "What piece of IP do you most regret not having a chance to make during your time with Amazon?"
Not having a chance to make,
or maybe something like you passed on.
Not making,
yeah.
Toward the end of when I was at Amazon, there was kind of a mandate to really focus on like fantasy and sci-fi, and try to get a big tentpole hit, and so during that time, we definitely saw some good shows that we could not do because they didn't, qualify under that. And I think Morning Show was one. Kaminsky Method was one. I definitely would have done that. And Yellowstone was one as well.
Oh, so like those shows were kind of like, how does it work? Like, are they brought to every studio and then it's like a bidding process, or is it just they go along and just everybody just declines until they finally find someone who?
Morning Show, they set up a conference room at CAA, the agency, and all the networks came on a particular day.
Yeah.
And Kaminsky Method, they came over to our place, so presumably they went everywhere. And
did they have a pilot at that point, or a script?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it was Chuck Lorre and Michael Douglas, and of course they made a great show. They're very talented, and and then Yellowstone, I don't remember, but that worked out well.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well. And what I'm sure a lot of people are interested, but like, what extent is Jeff Bezos like involved in these? Like, when you say that they wanted like some giant tentpole fantasy, like is that in any way coming from him, or is he just kind of overseeing everything and like?
Well, we wouldn't meet that frequently, but he had a point of view, and he definitely was supportive of that tentpole sci-fi fantasy preference point of view.
I guess
I think there was.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes you like, luck is a factor. Like, sometimes you make a lot more progress in one area than in another. So in comedy, we did relatively well, and we won a bunch of awards, and we made a lot of progress. And in genre drama, it just took a bit longer. And I think eventually they started making a lot more progress, and we did. The first big one was probably The Boys.
The Boys, yeah, because The Boys is a huge hit. Like, I just wonder, like, is he the type of guy who's so busy? Like, is he watching TV and he goes like, yeah, we should do this? Like, is he in front of his TV just being like, more of this kind of thing?
He definitely watches TV and has opinions about it. I don't think he's watching TV like all the time, but
no. Yeah,
enough. He's got a point of view.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. And this is a funny question. You're probably not going to have has nothing to do with you at all, but multiple people asked the same question, which was, why was Ring of Power so shitty?
I had nothing to do with that.
I know you had nothing to do with that. I don't know why I think people are just so, although I guess that's maybe an indication of like what's going on with what's going on with like just whatever the world where they're just because it's all recycled. Like, is the whole recycling IP? Is that just because that's a safe bet for the most part? Because like I see a lot.
I mean, it really attracts customers. You know, it's much easier than doing an original, and you know, I think there's something unfortunate about that, but you know, I also think it's true. And I think the main problem Ring of Power had was that Galadriel was a little hard to access as a character. You know, it seemed like a very distant protagonist, and
I haven't seen it.
Maybe that'll evolve. Oh yeah,
I'm not a big fantasy guy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know what it is, but I've always been just like super into. I mean, not what it is. It's just I'm really into comedies and stuff. But yeah, like I was looking before the show, like at the biggest movies of 2023, and it's just like they're just remaking everything.
Sequels, you know, superheroes.
But like the remakes of stuff constantly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, White Man, like that's a movie Andrew Schultz was in. White Man Can't Jump.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, like because as someone who wants to write, like, you know, as someone who, like, you know, I've written many scripts and like that was, you know, I had a goal of that to get into that thing, and then you're like, they don't even take new ideas. Like, what's the best case scenario? Like, you just get hired to rewrite, like
the Slinky movie,
or or whatever, you know. But you're like they don't take new ideas. Like, is there somewhere out there like the next Lord of the Rings? Or next, like,
I mean, the thing is, like, it you know, most of the movies used to be original.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever. Like if you go back in time, like Ghostbusters was not based on anything.
No.
They just came up with an idea called Ghostbusters. You know, Stripes, Fletch, you know, Tootsie, whatever.
Everything.
Caddyshack, Animal House, like they're all hilarious and not based on anything. So, yeah, I think, you know, as part of our revolutionary plan, we need to include that.
Yeah, because I'm just like, it's so, I don't want to say it's discouraging, because I'm just like, whatever. Obviously, people like that. I guess there's some comfort. Like, I don't even, like, does that check the nostalgia box for them to re-release, like, an old, not re-release, but, like, put out something like a White Man Can't Jump again? Like, I don't even know if that does check the nostalgia.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Is it even nostalgia? Like, when did that come out?
It came out in like 1990. I mean, it would be for some, like maybe for me, it would be nostalgic.
So, yeah, like who's nostalgic? I'm trying to think who's nostalgic for it. I guess. I don't know, but audiences do use it as some kind of indicator that like this is a thing worth paying attention to, because people probably put a lot of money in it. And it has a star, and everybody kind of gets organized around something that is a major IP.
Yeah. And they're just, I mean, I guess that somewhat makes sense. Like, and I don't know if it was on the podcast I was listening to, but like, it seems it used to be that they would just get some star, and stars could just basically make a movie. Is that becoming less of the case?
I feel like that's much less the case. It's not zero. I think there are some stars like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise. But a lot of the stars, I feel like a lot of the stars are older. You know, and they became stars in an earlier time when you could become a star.
Yeah.
But, you know, who are the stars under 35? I think it's harder to become a star in that zone today. So, you know.
And they're all TV stars, right? All the people who I can think of who are like big, younger celebrities, I think are all from television at this point. Like I think of like Stranger Things or.
I think you could argue Scarlett is a star. And.
Yeah. But she's not under 35.
No, but you know, she's kind of in that zone.
Yeah.
So that may be an exception, but you know, it's just like fewer than before. And and there's just a lot more media now. There are a lot more TV shows. There's TikTok, there's YouTube. It's harder to have everybody in America focus on you, for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in our society akin to being on the cover of Rolling Stone in 1990.
Right.
Like,
that's just non-existent anymore.
Yeah, that would be like if everybody in America only watched your TikTok for like a week.
Yeah. It is so yeah, it's like it's funny you say TikTok because TikTok is actually trying to I don't spend a lot of time on there. I have no idea what's going on for the most part.
Right.
I post my stuff and I'm just like I don't get it. But it is interesting where someone can be, so like they'll show the way the algorithm works is they'll like show you somebody. And then as long as the algorithm is essentially blessing you, like it's like some sort of like Mayan god or something where they're like to that person where they keep showing you and they go, okay, that person's hugely famous, but then they just take them away. Like they'll just do that so that person is probably all of a sudden being like, man, I got so much heat on me. And then it just disappeared. And they probably, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. I guess the way the algorithm works is like, what extent do algorithms play right now with even, idea generation and not idea generation, but like the type of, because I imagine that, Amazon Prime has some sort of algorithm for predicting things and so does Netflix and whatnot. So the people who design that theoretically, like the way it works, like, because I'm sure the things that do popular based on this algorithm, they're going to make more of those.
Algorithms aren't really used in development.
Non-development. Like you don't go look at the things that are kind of doing well on, for example, like Prime or whatever.
That was all baloney.
Really?
That was all baloney.
Interesting. So it was just straight up in terms of development is just you're the guy and they say we're betting on Roy, so Roy go pick us like some winners. Like is that
Well, I mean, you have a whole team and sometimes you will run it by the audience before you green light it. So you can either make a pilot or you can, take other versions like the premise or a longer version of the premise and run it by 1,000 people and just see what they think. So we set up something called AMZN Preview, which was heavy users of the service plus big IMDb users. And you could send them premises or casting ideas or, kind of a paragraph synopsis or whatever you want.
Yeah.
And, they would give feedback and that was, not unhelpful. And then we did pilots for a while, but then we actually stopped doing that because it just delays you too much.
Yeah.
And it was a competitive disadvantage because other people were not doing it.
And so and then that was kind of like the modern version of test screenings? Because I've never heard of that before where you would just, like IMDb users would just send them like what would it be like if everybody was like hated this or everybody loved it, then you'd just be like, okay, that's the right path to go. Like you're not necessarily making decisions based off of it, but you'll be like, yeah, we can go down this path now.
I mean, it's good to know what people think or at least what their reaction is to what you showed them. Right. If you show a premise to 1,000 people and 1,000 people hate it,
right? Probably.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
You
Did you have any examples of that, like where it was like widely hated or loved, like ideas that you would send and you go like, this is.
I would say this. The important thing is how many people. The important thing is that there are people who love it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's better to have 30% of people love it and 70% of people
just ambivalent,
don't care, whatever, versus 100% of people think it's a 7.
Right. Yeah, because those people are just there's no.
They don't care.
Yeah, there's no like emotional attachment. All right, we got a caller. We're gonna make this one the last one of the night. One second, please. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? 1 second, please, while we connect you to Roy. All right, you are on with Roy. Last caller of the night. Who am I speaking with?
This is Zake RG.
Zake RG, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. I apologize. It was kind of off topic. I've been in and out of the show tonight, but I was curious, Roy, what are your thoughts on social programming and like kind of the role that media plays in that? Or do you have any thoughts? I'm just curious.
What's social programming?
Social programming being like the messages that get kind of brought into the zeitgeist through entertainment to,
I guess like political messages, stuff like that. Like,
political or cultural messages. And it's okay if you don't have an opinion. I'm just curious.
All right.
My theory is that comedy, for some reason, comedy and politics like uses the same part of the brain, because I know this is an idiosyncratic theory, but here's why. Because so many careers basically go like this: very, very funny, and you become, famous and successful. Then step 2, become super political. Okay. Now never write anything funny ever again. Okay. And for some reason, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or whatever, like pushes the funny out of your brain unless your name is Norman Lear. Like there are like 5 people, who can like do it both. They think about politics and comedy, but like I try not to think too much, or get too involved with politics because I think I've seen this like many times. And so that's kind of my theory of it. I feel there should be kind of a church and state where you kind of deal with politics at somewhat at your own risk.
Yeah. Anything else there, caller? You got anything else?
No, I guess that's. It's kind of for you. It's a result of perverse incentives, kind of a deal where you get a taste of fame and some success, and
people want to listen to you, kind of. It feeds in on itself. All right, thanks, dude. Yeah. No, I fucking hung up on the wrong person. All right, I did it again. Sorry, Roy. I'm so stupid. I'm sorry, everybody. Sorry, everybody. You know what? We're gonna end. I'm gonna bring Roy back on. Just 1 second, people. That's 2 weeks in a row that I did this because I am an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing here. Hold on, everybody. Sorry, Roy. And I really wanted to talk about him, the one thing, and then I'm so stupid. Hold on. Sorry, everybody. I can't believe I did that again. Well, we'll see if we can get. Sorry, I'm so stupid. I'm idiot. I have this button here, and then I just wasn't paying attention, and I removed the wrong person from the thing. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Let's see if we can get Roy back one more time. Let's see. Hold tight, people. I can't believe I did this 2 weeks in a row. I will try not to do it a third week in a row. You can look at me twice right now as we wait for Roy. Here we go. So stupid. Such an idiot. 1 second, people. There he is. Sorry, Roy. I'm stupid. Oh, we lost him, and he's back. Hey, sorry about that. I'm a dummy.
No problem.
I meant to kick out the other guy to just remove him. Anyways, sorry about that. We are back with Roy. Apologies for that. So yeah, the thing you were saying, because that was honestly such the politics and the comedy thing, is the smartest comedians always especially comedy actors, like someone like an Adam Sandler. Nobody knows his politics. And right, and it's like by design, because the moment, like, especially social media is the worst for that, because it gave these people like this instant access where you could put out an idea and then people would be like, yeah, you're right. And mostly when you're a famous person, people are not disagreeing with you unless you're going whatever against the grain. But like, yeah, that you're like totally right about that, where like the mixture of comedy and politics can be so poisonous, but also because comics are supposed to be objective as well,
yeah,
right?
And it's supposed to be funny. I don't. It's just like I've seen it a million times, and of course you could come up with this and that exception, and I'm sure there are more exceptions than I realize. But
there's honestly not, to be like you are pretty spot on it, because we talk about this, like Ryan and I talk about this a lot, because we get approached by things like the Daily Wire. Like the Daily Wire has, they have tons of money right now. Like they're throwing around real sums of money, and they'll be like, hey, do you want to come do like a project or whatever? They're like, we're making movies, we're doing all this stuff. But then you're like, well, then, you can't be like, oh, I'm impartial politically when I'm making content for the Daily Wire. Right. You can't. And that's like, you might not even necessarily, there's no way you'll make something for them without having to take some kind of position because the stuff that they're doing is that, right? But like, it's so, yeah. Like, I mean, Trump was a message to everybody in entertainment, where you're like, look, it's like, you don't need to give your opinions on everything, especially politics, because one, you alienate half of the country.
That's the thing. Half the people are not with you, whatever political position you take. So, and I really think it changes you. If you get up in the morning and you're thinking about, whatever, marginal tax rates or, whatever political issue, I do think it pushes something out of the mind that is the like the part that makes jokes, or the something.
Part that makes jokes, yeah, for sure. You're like, what's funny about Martin? Yeah, it's just, I totally agree, because there's not a lot of comedians who have been able to, like, not that they don't exist, but you run, it's such a risky endeavor. And the fact is, most comedians, you don't really know their politics. Like, they obviously have them, but the moment you know them, you're just like, it puts a stink on any commentary they have about anything, because you're like, well, you're just a soldier on this side of the debate, essentially. So it'll be like, obviously you think that. And then also, comedy is that there's an element of surprise, right? So if I know how you lean ideologically, I probably know what you're about to say. And then if you say the opposite of that, then I know you're lying, because you kind of, it's almost like, have you heard the John C. Reilly thing, where he's like, he's like not on the internet, like, he's got no social media. He doesn't like to do interviews, really, because he wants the mystique of himself almost to like exist, so that all the characters can almost like live, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I kind of like, he's like secretive, so his
a lot of people do not have social media. I think George Clooney and but they're like a half dozen major people who don't do it at all.
Yeah, I mean those are the smart ones, because I feel like, especially if you're a real like A-list celebrity, you have so little to gain from that, and you have so much to lose. So much to lose.
Yeah. Although, did you miss my banger today about Cocaine Bear?
Cocaine Bear? No. What was
we're gonna now do a series of movies which are like substance plus animal.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Is that how Hollywood works? Like that's what we have coming out.
Oh
like,
yeah, like we got to do crack bats, and we're just on it. We're on it.
That is actually, come to think of it. So I was looking at the top movies of this year. So that was like, I think one of the, maybe the 10th highest grossing film this year. Something like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that kind of runs in like, I mean, that's obviously a comedy. It seems like a bit of an anomaly that they made that. I get like,
yeah, it does seem like an anomaly to me. I mean, it is not nearly as polite as most of the stuff that is coming out.
Yeah, like I remember saw the trailers for that, and then I was like, "Oh, this is going straight to whatever. Like this isn't going to be, on in theaters." But I guess it's like when they put those numbers up, like the box office. Like I imagine that doesn't factor in any streaming. Although I guess that factors in like rentals.
The box office numbers.
Yeah, like because like if you look up like the top movies of 2023 or whatever, it has like 80 million or something.
Yeah, 87, I think.
Or
yeah,
87 million, which is. But is that including renting from iTunes, or is that?
No, that's just dollars at the theater.
Oh, okay, so then there you go. So that's, I guess, somewhat of a swing in the right direction there, because.
Yeah, for sure.
I would not have expected that.
No, that one got through somehow.
Yeah, and now do you think like whoever kind of greenlit that, like they're gonna probably try and go make more of those? Like, is that like it's gonna be really on the nose of like?
Well, I don't know if you can sequel that one in particular, but it probably makes it a little easier to do slightly crazy movies, with a crazy premise,
right?
Than before. I mean, Elizabeth Banks was associated with that. She's super talented, and I think
Carrie Russell was in that, I believe.
Yeah, and I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller produced it, so you had a lot of people behind it to get it over the line.
Yeah.
Now, but I'm glad it got made.
When you were saying earlier that we need, one's a fluke, 2 to 3 is like does this count as one?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe there's one.
That's one.
So now we need 2 or 3 more.
All right, so then The Machine, and then I don't know what other comedies are coming up.
We'll do the one with the 3 million in New York with we have to figure out.
Trevor Wallace. Well, we know Trevor's been on our podcast, so we know him. Ryan's done some sketches with him, so we know Trevor. We can make that happen. All right. Thank you. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to find you online?
Oh, I'm just at Twitter, Roy Price.
And you have a Substack as well that they can.
Yeah, I mean, it has a link tree, so you can see all the other things.
All the other stuff.
The easy thing to remember is Twitter, Roy Price.
Right. Do you have any thoughts on what's going on with Twitter?
Not really. I mean, it, seems to work fine.
No, but I mean, like in terms of, it's not that buggy. No, I think I mean in terms of like, how they have 2 hour. They've like now allowed you can upload up to 2 hours of video on Twitter. It seems like they're trying to bring podcasting on there. Tucker Carlson's show is going to be on there. Now I don't know if anyone on the left's going to be doing.
I actually think Twitter is going to be huge, and it's already huge, but I think it's going to be much huger, and it has a huge opportunity in front of it. So. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could buy stock in Twitter now, but I cannot. Me too.
I had stock in Twitter, and then they did their deal. And Elon even said, too, that at the time that he was going to try and let people keep a share of the private company. But then I guess I don't know if that was even a possibility to actually, in practice, do.
Yeah, I'm bullish on Twitter. I think they have a really strong roadmap, and I think they're going to succeed. So.
Yeah. It is the only site where I don't feel like when I go off of it that I just wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Whereas,
that's a good point.
Like TikTok and Instagram, I get sucked into those things sometimes. Like I haven't have like an app on my phone that like regulates my time on them, so that like it kicks me
Oh,
off.
really?
Yeah, it's called
wow.
Unpluck, PLUK, or Q. But
I
it
like
kicks me off.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube
okay.
YouTube is. I think Twitter's trying to fold in some of the best parts of YouTube into Twitter to be kind of like a bit of a more of an everything.
Right.
App, I guess, but anyways, like Instagram, TikTok. When I get off of those, I was like, that was watching like whatever trash TV, but just on my.
Well, on TikTok, there's one guy, by the way, on TikTok, I think called Side Quests, that is very funny that you might like. But basically on TikTok, I think I liked a couple things from Kingdom of Heaven, the Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, all it gives me is like trad Catholic, like hardcore medieval stuff. And
apparently you can reset your algorithm. I think TikTok has like a setting, because sometimes I wish I could I have to make like a new Twitter account. Like I have basically like a hardcore, because I fancy myself pretty middle of the road, but then I feel getting shown too much like stuff on the right. So then I have like a hardcore liberal Twitter account, so that Twitter account only gets shown stuff on the left, so that I can kind of like balance it out, because they need like modes. Like Lex Friedman said it, but I thought this for a long time, where like I need like a mode. Like I need like a church mom mode on Twitter where I can see what that they would see. Like I want to see all these people's different POVs on Twitter, essentially. So that's
interesting.
Just so I can have a different look at what people like, what their view of the world is, because otherwise you just get fed some of this, just like a loop.
Yeah. Well, I have the mute list, so I have a lot of topics muted.
Yeah.
Like there are many things I'm not interested in.
Right.
And so I find that very helpful.
Yeah. I've done
for instance, with like Harry and Meghan.
Right.
Like I had to hit that hard on the mute list. It's every variation of the name, like Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
And do you have to do and every like 4 different spellings of Meghan and like.
Yeah, right. Like in case someone misspells it, you got to catch that. But now I've got it filtered out cold.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they'll be able to do a thing where you can get just like, basically use people's filters. You're like, hey, can I, or something like that, maybe.
Right.
I don't know. I agree though. I think Twitter is, I'm very excited about Twitter. It's the only one I think is doing cool stuff. That's not literally just based around sucking you into the app and keeping you there for no good reason.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to actually do something beneficial.
That's TikTok.
All right, Roy, thank you very much. This has been a really fun episode, and I appreciate you coming on. Everybody go follow Roy over on Twitter, Roy Price TV. On Twitter? That was correct?
I think it's just Roy Price.
Oh, just Roy Price. My mistake.
Yeah.
And we will be starting the after show at 11 o'clock tonight. You can sign up over on Patreon or, the places you can sign up. All right. Good night, everybody. And back tomorrow night with a new episode of The Bathhouse, 10:30 p.m. See you soon. Good night. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Beat blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurting. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5 got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball that I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't want to turn on my light switch. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, I'm pulling up fresh on some